This is Stories of Impact, the art and science of human flourishing. In every episode, we travel the world to explore intersections of science and spirituality. I'm your host, writer Tavia Gilbert, and along with journalist Richard Sergey, every first and third Tuesday, we look through a new lens at old traditions, hear from new generations as they dream up innovative solutions, and learn new ways to make sense of modern life. I'm writing to you from my home office in New York's Hudson Valley. And Maddie, my cattle dog Corky, keeps pushing her nose under my arm, which makes typing a lot harder. Pepper, my cattle dog beagle mix, is waiting a bit more patiently than her sister. But both girls want me to stop work and take them to the dog park, where Pepper will happily chase after a ball as long as I'll throw it, and Maddie will happily chase after Pepper. It's one of the best parts of our daily lives together. Each visit brings us joy. Or does it? I know it gives me joy, but are they feeling joy? Are animals capable of feeling joy? What is joy? Dr. Erica Cartmill wants to know. She's the Indiana University Professor of Cognitive Science, Animal Behavior, and Anthropology, who longtime listeners to Stories of Impact will recognize from conversations we've had in the past about her studies of diverse intelligences and humor in apes. Today, we'll learn about one of her latest collaborative projects, a first-of-its-kind multidisciplinary study, Joyful by Nature, on the evolution and the function of joy in animals. Here's Dr. Cartmill.
There's a tendency to think about nature as being all about survival, all about nature red in tooth and claw. And what we were hoping to really shine a light on and ask deep systematic questions about is, what are the experiences that animals have that help fill their lives out, that help give them meaning, that fill their moments with beauty and excitement and give purpose to their lives? For all of us, human and non-human, purpose goes beyond simply surviving, but thriving and flourishing and finding those moments of beauty and those moments of joy. What we wanted to do was to really shift the focus on animal emotion away from looking at fear and pure survival into looking at the motivations that cause animals to choose to interact with each other, to choose to explore their environments more, to have positive emotional responses. And do those change the way that they remember things? Do they change the way they interact with one another? Do they change the way they interact with the world?
They're not asking about the animal's subjective emotional experience, so the answers will benefit humans, Dr. Cartmill explains.
If we can shift the narrative on animals from something that's instrumental to human lives, if we can shift the narrative to ask questions about the inner lives of animals and think about the moments that make their lives worth living, we might start considering those lives as having more value. A lot of the ways that humans have historically interacted with animals, including today, are instrumental. People often treat animals in terms of, what can you do for me? And this is something that you see not just in farmed animals, also pets. And I think that by asking questions about the inner lives of those animals, it helps give us a different window and potentially a different appreciation for their lives and their experiences. My hope is that it will start to give more dimensionality to our understanding and view of animals.
However, adding dimensionality to our understanding of other species' emotional lives will inevitably benefit humans, says Dr. Cartmill.
I'm quite optimistic about the future of humanity, and I think part of what will help shape that future is for us to be more humble as a species. I think for us to find moments where we connect with other species, where we see moments of meaning and purpose in other species in a way that doesn't have anything to do with how they can help enhance our lives. If we can start to appreciate moments of beauty and meaning and joy in the lives of other species, then we'll be able to better appreciate them in each other and in ourselves. And that's certainly something that I hope we will take away from this study, is a greater capacity for joy in our own lives.
Dr. Cartmill says the timing is right for a study like this.
The study of animal emotions is a holistic science, really in its infancy. And people have focused in the past on studying emotions that have clear behavioral and immediate correlates. Things like fear, that you shock an animal and then you show that when they start to walk towards the stimulus that elicited the shock last time, they shy away from it. And there has been a lot of work in psychology and animal behavior on questions around fear and aggression and things that are possible to see behaviorally and possible to measure hormonally. And positive emotions in animals have largely been overlooked. I think that the field is finally starting to be more comfortable asking questions about internal states of animals, about animal emotions. This is something that outside of fear conditioning, questions about the emotional lives of animals was really thought of as too fluffy a question to be asked in a serious scientific way. I think a lot of people shied away from asking it.
Dr. Heidi Lyn, Joan M. Sinnott Professor in Psychology and Marine Sciences at the University of South Alabama, believes it's both timely and important to move forward the science of animal emotion.
I care because I care about animals, but I think also we care because looking at animals and saying, how do we make them happy? It can't just be about the absence of negative emotion. It also should be about the presence of positive emotion. And if we can see what brings about positive emotion, how can we measure positive emotion, how can we compare it across species, then maybe we can be better stewards of animal species in general, including ourselves.
Dr. Cartmill and Dr. Lyn are joined in the Joyful by Nature study by Dr. Colin Allen, Professor of Philosophy at University of California, Santa Barbara. He's excited to expand the type of questions that scientists ask about animals' emotions.
We're able to push forward an agenda that's not clinically oriented, that really is trying to broaden our understanding of the diverse intelligences and the way in which positive affect fits within lots of different species. Joy is a positive emotion. A lot of the work on animals is being done in a medical or clinical mode, focusing on what we might think of as negative states. So animal models for pain, animal models for depression, animal models for fear. These are all, of course, clinically important because we would like to know how to treat those kinds of conditions in human beings. But as a result, the positive affect side of things is rather understudied. We're finally getting to do something fun with animals and call it science, instead of what's often a much more depressing approach to studying animals. The idea is that positive emotions, positive affect, including very high bursts, high excitement, positivity, is widespread in the animal kingdom. It's been understudied. We think it's a natural phenomenon. And like all natural phenomena, we should be able to study it scientifically. It helps us understand the really big question, why life is worth living. So one of the questions we're interested in is, are people or other organisms that have just had some very good event in their life learning differently? Are they learning better? Are they learning more narrowly or more broadly? How does that affect learning? How does it affect sociality? These have implications for how we structure our education systems, how we bring joy perhaps into the classroom. These are all questions which are of importance to human well-being as well as to animal well-being.
Dr. Cartmill believes that the diversity of the research team is key.
We have people coming from field biology, from psychology, cognitive science, from marine science, philosophy. And I think bringing together all of these different perspectives and intellectual traditions helps us ask better questions. It helps us ask deeper questions and gives us different perspectives and angles on this big, slippery question of, can animals feel joy? And if so, what are the implications for their intelligence?
Dr. Lyn says that the goal of the study is
looking into the naturalness of positive emotions. How much do we find happiness, joy, positivity generally across animal species? How much is that sort of embedded, ingrained in us as a natural part of being an animal?
The researchers are centering their study specifically on the presence of joy, because joy can be narrowly defined and thus measured. Dr. Lyn starts with a simple working definition of what exactly it is that they're measuring.
We're looking at short-term bursts of positive affect and ones that are tied to specific things in the environment, because when we decided on a definition of joy, we were also trying to think of how can we measure it best and how can we do experiments to try and create joy the best. And with that definition, we have the ability to do that. We can set up an environment and then try and put something into that environment that we think may spark joy and then measure it at that point.
Dr. Cartmill defines joy as
these aha moments, these moments of transformation, of feeling moved, of bursting out of yourself and expressing that positive emotion in a way that's externally visible and just can't be contained. Those are the moments that create these highlights and signposts in our lives, in our human lives, that give us these moments of clarity and transcendence and excitement that we remember, that we revisit. And I think trying to find those in the lives of animals, trying to ask whether they do experience those, is hopefully a somewhat profound question.
The research team is studying joy across 3 species: great apes, bottlenose dolphins, and Kia parrots. Why those 3? Dr. Cartmill says,
these are all species that are highly social, they're highly intelligent, and they play a lot. And so we really wanted to start this initial inquiry into animal joy by starting with species where we thought there were contexts, types of behaviors, and types of social relationships that resembled the ones that we have as humans, where we would expect to find intense positive emotion. We also wanted to choose species that were different in terms of body plan. Do you have wings? Do you have flippers? Do you have arms and hands? We wanted to choose species that have different kinds of social groupings, social relationships, and we wanted to choose species that lived in different types of environments. And partially that's because what we're hoping to do with this project is not just to figure out how apes and dolphins and parrots experience joy and the role that joy plays in their cognitive and social lives. But we're hoping to lay a foundation for a broader study of joy in animals. And so by choosing the species we did, it forced us to develop methods, paradigms, and theoretical frameworks that could be applied to a wide diversity of species.
The study of joy in animals reveals that the 3 species aren't just social and intelligent. They express their internal state of mind through their voice. Kia parrots have a warble call, dolphins a victory squeal, great apes, like humans, laugh. Dr. Allen says,
the chimpanzee vocalization that we call laughter is quite similar, recognizable as similar to our own laughter. Our own laughter is a bit more voice, ha. Theirs is a bit more breathy, ha.
Dr. Cartmill adds,
that's part of why we chose not just to look at great apes, because emotions in great apes look a lot like emotions in humans. Laughter in great apes sounds like laughter in humans. A warble call in Kia does not sound like human laughter. They don't have facial expressions in the way that we have facial expressions. We can't just look for the same vocalization in chimpanzees and dolphins and Kia. They're not producing the same vocalizations, but we can look for times when they're interacting within close social relationship. We can't look for those analogies in terms of what they sound like, what they look like. But what we can start to do is to ask questions about the function that these signals might serve. If you hear a warble call, laughter, a victory squeal, how do you respond? Are they things that bring individuals together? Are they things that lead individuals to play with each other? Are they things that happen within certain kinds of relationships and not within others? Are they linked to changes in blood flow and heart rate and pupil dilation? Are there biological signatures that accompany the production of some of these signals that could tell us about something about what's going on inside the animal?
The team is in the midst of their study, so they'll continue to collect and analyze data. But Dr. Allen is ready to make the connection between vocalization, laughter, and joy.
Joy and laughter seem quite connected. Laughter is not something that lasts very long after the event provoking laughter. If you laughed for half an hour after a joke, there'd be perhaps something wrong with you. People would certainly look at you quite strangely, right? So laughter is normally this very fast response. It might last a few seconds and then it goes. So the characteristic dynamics of laughter, I think, are rather similar to the characteristic dynamics of this state that we're interested in, that we're calling joy.
He also connects joy to playfulness.
Play is a big part of this as well. Play is one of those things that lots of animals do across a wide variety of taxonomic groups, from birds to mammals, but also even reptiles and fish, perhaps. And play elicits perhaps this kind of joyful state.
Dr. Lyn agrees.
When we look at animals playing, there's no evolutionary or functional purpose to a lot of these behaviors. That's what makes them play, but they'll do them over and over again, which suggests that they are finding them enjoyable.
Dr. Cartmill says that observing animals play offered the team a way to identify signals that would be honest reflections of a positive internal state.
Starting with play is one way to say, okay, here's a context where we are pretty confident that the animals are in a positive state. Let's see what kinds of behaviors they're producing during that. Then let's look for those behaviors in other contexts and generate hypotheses about the relationship between their internal states and the signals they're producing.
While the team was taking measurements of signals such as pupil dilation and heart rate, they were also listening for the unique, potentially joyful vocalizations from each species. So what if they found makes a dolphin laugh? Dr. Lyn says,
So if they're being trained to do something, most of the trainers will give a little whistle, and that whistle tells the dolphin that they're correct. They make this little whee. What I'm seeing that says this is joy is that trainers, when they indicate to the dolphin that, hey, you got it, you're correct. And especially when it's a new behavior and the dolphin's trying really hard to figure out a new behavior and it's a difficult thing. And then the trainer says, you did it, you got it. It's this immediate sort of explosion. And the dolphin sometimes will jump out of the water. They'll sometimes make all sorts of movements. When the trainer is high-fiving them, they'll come up and do that again. They're squealing pretty much that whole time. I was surprised to see that what I think is happening is that there's a natural vocalization, the victory squeal, and then it's being modified with the trainers. So if the trainers are louder and more exuberant, we get more loud and exuberant dolphins. It feels very human-like if you're on the side of it. It definitely feels like a person that you're interacting with and you're both just so excited that they have completed a task that they've been trying to do so hard and they finally burst through and got it.
what positive circumstances has the team found make a Kia parrot vocalize joyfully? Dr. Cartmill says,
Kia parrots produce warble vocalizations, which is essentially a form of Kia laughter. And in those vocalizations, they produce them during play, but they also produce them when the weather is particularly beautiful. They produce them on sunny, snowy days. They love snow, they love playing in snow. And so we've found that weather is a significant predictor of when they will produce warble calls in the wild. They make this call when they're playing. And what we've found is that if they hear that call and they're not currently playing, they'll start playing. And if they are playing, then they'll continue to play longer. So if you record that call and you play it back to Kia, who are not vocalizing themselves, they'll start vocalizing or they'll start playing or they'll continue playing longer.
And what has she found makes a great ape laugh?
One of the things we found with wild chimpanzees is that we do see laughter in adults, which was very surprising to me. It's quite rare. You see it much more often in infants. Adults do it when they're wrestling and playing with infants, but you also see it happen between adults. It can happen during grooming, it can happen during reunions. Chimpanzees have a fission-fusion society, so they spend time away from their friends and loved ones for a lot of the day, and then when they come back together, we're seeing this sort of intense form of panting that we think is an adult form of laughter. It seems to be something that individuals will do within close relationships in a way that I find incredibly moving.
What do these findings tell her?
I think it tells us that they're not that different from us. I think it tells us that the things that bring animals joy, the things that bring them meaning and bring highlights to their daily lives are relationships, their friendships, their moments of surprise, their reunions, a beautiful change in the weather. That there really is an inner life in animals that we don't just have to project because we assume that it's either the same as ours or completely different than ours. What we're trying to do is to recognize these moments of similarity, but appreciate them on their own terms.
Continuing to observe the apes, dolphins, and parrots helps the team deepen their understanding of positive emotions.
How does their behavior change before and after they're reunited with a loved one? How does their behavior change before and after a play session? How does their behavior change before and after they reconcile with someone that they had a fight with? Identifying these moments of change allows us to really isolate and compare different values that become a more tractable scientific question. And so asking questions about not just what do animals do, but why do they do it? For me, that is a question that intersects directly with questions of emotion. And I think that emotion can be a real driver in why animals seek out certain kinds of interactions, why they choose to spend time with one individual versus another individual.
Each species may have its own reasons to outwardly express joy.
What's the advantage to them? There are different perspectives on positive communicative signaling. One is it's something that's difficult to suppress. You have a strong emotion and it comes out. Another possibility is that they're communicating their intention to other individuals. I feel good, I'm coming into a social interaction with you, or I'm interacting with something and I feel good about it, maybe you want to interact with it.
Dr. Lyn's findings with dolphins suggests that they could be joyfully and consciously communicating.
They certainly seem to be. They adjust their behavior depending on who's around. They have passed numerous cognitive tasks that were thought to be very difficult for other animals. They mimic vocalizations. We've had studies where they play different sounds in different orders, and the dolphins can absolutely mimic those and even transpose them up or down octaves as needed. There's a lot of things that dolphins can do that other species just haven't been able to do.
Dr. Allen says that the hard science of the research team is the foundation for asking bigger questions about consciousness.
I think that actually a lot of science produces hard science around what's initially a soft topic. There's been a lot of discussion over the last couple of decades about whether animals are conscious at all. And the scientific consensus on that has gone back and forth since that time. The consensus has moved towards the idea that we can say something reasonably scientific about that. We're in a period where people are taking far more seriously the idea that animals are conscious, that they have feelings, that they have thoughts, that they can reason. But consciousness is a very broad question. I think by focusing on a particular emotional states such as joy, the discussion becomes a lot more concrete and therefore a lot more tractable.
So what are the implications of having that discussion? Dr. Allen says,
the answer to the question, does it help us understand us, is, for me, an obvious yes, because I don't see humans as separate from the rest of the animal kingdom. And understanding which parts of us come about because of shared ancestry and which parts of us come about because of the very particular and somewhat weird niche that we've constructed for ourselves is an important part of self-understanding.
What are Dr. Lyn's thoughts?
It leads us down this path of talking about evolution in terms of the entire sphere of thought processes, including emotion. If we are accepting the fact that complicated emotion is happening in such diverse species as apes, dolphins, and birds, we have to recognize that the thought processes that lead to those emotions or help mitigate those emotions or work with those emotions also happen within those species.
What does it tell us about our own species, though, that we've not yet reached a broad scientific consensus about positive emotions and consciousness in animals.
I don't know if it's a flattering portrait of us, but I think our tendency to focus in on negative emotions has been very clear in the literature. And our resistance to granting animals the ability to feel positive emotions definitely reflects on us. And I think part of that is that question of human uniqueness that we would like to continue to believe in. I think part of it is resistance to how we treat animals generally. If we recognize that they can be playful and they can feel joy, do we have to think again about how we treat them? And that resistance to believing that we have to change our minds about animals and animal minds, I think reflects relatively poorly on us.
Does this study call into question for the team that perhaps humans aren't so unique? Dr. Lyn says,
Oh, I definitely think that. I think that all the time because I think that our uniqueness is usually built upon these ideas of what we do that no other animal does. And every time we try to set that up, a scientist comes along and knocks it down. Hundreds of different species use tools, right? Language is the same thing. Positive emotions are the same thing. Every time we try to find something that is uniquely human, we fail to do it. And we don't like that. So we try and move the goalposts a little bit further. And I think the only thing that is basically left that is uniquely human is we wear clothes, we build objects, and we live in houses. We adjust our environment to suit us instead of adjusting ourselves to suit the environment. And is that something to hang our hats on as like we're special? I don't know. If we try to think about it in terms of evolution, we try to say, okay, in our evolutionary past, humans were unique, but evolutionarily, I don't know that we are that different.
Dr. Cartmill wonders the same.
It's one of the driving questions in my life is what makes humans unique and how unique are we? I think that there's no question that we are different from other species. We've done things that no other species have done, but I also think that we're not as unique as we like to think we are. And so for me, trying to figure out what are the things that differentiate humans from other species and what are the things that are more continuous has been a major driver in my professional career. And so do we experience joy in a different way? Possibly. I don't think it's the one thing that sets us apart. There's no question in my mind that humans are unique, but so is every other species. No other species is exactly like another species. And so what you have is this amazingly diverse kingdom of different species, each of which is adapted to their own ecology, their own social situations. Humans are no different from that perspective. Humans have a lot of capacities that other animals don't have to the extent that we do. But as far as I can tell, we don't have a single capacity that is totally absent in other species. I think what makes humans human is this constellation of many different capacities, all of which interact with each other and can build on each other.
How does Dr. Cartmill hope this research study will contribute to science and to humanity?
I don't know whether this study tells us about human joy. I think what it does do, hopefully, is to give us an appreciation of our place in the universe. It connects us to the natural world. It connects us to other species. It shows us that some of the things that matter in our lives are also things that matter in the lives of other species. There are a lot of negative things to focus on in the world, and I think that trying to systematically ask questions about positive emotions, about positive experiences, can help us not just understand the natural world in deeper and better ways, but I think it can help us change the way that we focus on what's happening in our own lives. That would be scientifically transformative. It's not solving all the problems, but I think it's giving us the ability to ask richer, more nuanced questions in the future. And for me, that's the exciting thing about science, isn't answering all the questions, it's enabling the next generation of questions.
One of the most important aspects of the study for Dr. Allen is that becoming better acquainted with animals' emotions could bring, perhaps, their rights and humans' responsibility to those souls into clearer focus.
Trying to actually close that gap and get both in an ordinary understanding and in a scientific understanding, a better understanding of how to link those two is one of the big questions, really crucial to our overall understanding of the world, right? Because as we get a better understanding of what it's like to be one of these animals, that raises important ethical questions about how one treats those animals.
The questions Dr. Lyn is left with?
I think the implications are that we need to be looking at animals as more similar to humans than separate from humans. And the question of human uniqueness is actually one that isn't as interesting to me as what are the commonalities. And as I get older, I think that question of how do we leave the world better than we came to it, that is the very large question for humanity in general. Are we here just for selfish purposes? Are we here just to live our lives the way we want to live them? Or are we stewards of the earth that we have found? And should we be trying to make the world a better place? And if we're trying to make the world a better place, then I think that we need to be looking at animal species and humans and saying, how can we make them happy? If we can recognize joy in other species and recognize how to encourage it in those species, then we have a real good shot at making the world better.
We hope you'll come back in 2 weeks for another new episode. In the meantime, please share the Stories of Impact podcast with someone you think would love it. And we'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch at storiesofimpact.org. This has been the Stories of Impact podcast with an interview by Richard Sergey. Written and produced by Tavia Gilbert for Talkbox Productions. Music by Alexander Filipiak. Mix and master by Kayla Elrod. Executive producer, Michelle Cobb. The Stories of Impact podcast is generously supported by Templeton World Charity Foundation.